Hey everybody, Patrick Shaw here with Off the Rails TCG. You're about to watch episode 8 of the Action Point. Had an intro, didn't like it, scrapped it, so we're making a new one while I'm editing. Be sure to go over to the YouTube at Off the Rails TCG. Be sure to click the like, subscribe, and bell notifications to make sure you're getting the latest video content drops from the YouTube channel. Find us on Spotify and many other audio streaming platforms. Also, find us on Twitter at Off the Rails TCG. Follow us to see the latest updates there as well. Some news and notes. Recently just joined up with the Tavern Brawlers officially. It's been a long time coming. I've had a good relationship with them for the last year plus. I've done a lot of work with them, played a lot of games with them. It was only a matter of time, and we finally hammered it out and got it done. So yeah, Patch on Off the Rails TCG, member of the Tavern Brawler team. Happy to be a part of that. Be sure to go. I'm gonna have the Discord link below there. They are a fantastic place to play online, monthly, and weekly events. To not just Flesh and Blood, but things like Alpha Clash, Grand Archive, Battle Spirits. They have basically any TCG that strikes your fancy. They have events going on all the time to support them. So go check them out. Without further ado, here is the latest episode of the Action Point.
It's the action point, no relaxing. Straight from off the rails with your host, Mr. Patrick. Show we attack, then defend and react. Calculate the damage, then resolve in a snap. Facts with this here and ember blade, leave no witnesses. I just close the combat chain and we winning this. Listen, this a blaze, we ain't going scar for scar. And I'm feeling like a hero, we ain't going card for card. It's the action point, no relaxing.
All right, today we're trying something a little different for the show. I've locked 4 of some of the biggest names and brightest minds in Flesh and Blood in a room, or at least a video call, and no one gets out until I've gotten the answers to all the tough questions. A lot has happened in the last month or so of Flesh and Blood, with new sets and exciting tournaments, not to mention rule changes and bans. Some of these have been super divisive in the community, and today we're stoking the flames. Today's panel is going to be given a topic and will be given just a short amount of time to get their stance on it. There will be a quick opportunity for follow-ups and debate, and then it's on to the next one. I'll be keeping track of good points made and may or may not declare a winner at the end of the episode. The prize is the love and adoration of the tens of people watching right now, probably. But let's introduce today's guest. First, she's single-handedly ruining tier lists everywhere as her C-list hero is making S-tier results. Welcome, Rhea Adams.
Hello, hello.
Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Next up, when he's not firing arrows off of Voltaire or egging on feuds for the sake of showcase matchmaking, he's the conductor of the Clout Train. Welcome, Frank Hung. Frank, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Pat. And I just wish we were back in the days when you would say Rune Blade aficionado instead of slinging arrows.
I miss those days as well. They should have unbanned Skeletor. Maybe that's one of the topics. When you see a new video from him, it's going to be educational AF and make us all better Flesh and Blood players. The creator of must-see informative content over at Blackout Party. Welcome, Mike Fay, to the Action Point.
Hi, Pat. Thanks for having me. Glad to be on.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a long time coming. We're local to one another, so it's nice to do some content together.
Awesome. Thanks.
Last but not least, somehow he's started playing 2 more TCGs since I started talking, and is the holder of the single worst flight luck I have ever seen. He is the voice of Flesh and Blood himself, Matt Flake DeMarco. Welcome.
Well, hello. I'm here, yes, and not on a flight. Though
Nope.
that could very well change in a heartbeat, yes.
Thank you, everybody. Welcome to the Action Point on Off the Rails TCG. Now, without further ado, I pointed out before we started recording, but I have a stopwatch here. So we're going to hit this, and we're going to get rolling right about now. All right. First topic on the list. Arsenal Pass and Michael Fang have brought up variance in the game of Flesh and Blood, noting groups of the same players consistently at the top of big tournaments. So, question number 1, is there enough variance in the Flesh and Blood? Matt, I'm going to start with you.
So there is enough in that there is very little. And I think that that's part of why the game is very successful, is because it's an alternative to the RNG fiestas of the digital realm. And the whole thing about this being paper is that it limits certain things like create or discover mechanics. And there is enough in the sense that if you do want to play those types of heroes, they are there for you in the sense of rolling scab skins and rolling dice. Brute exists, Variance exists, and there's a reason why a lot of players don't play or succeed with those heroes very often, is because Variance is not necessarily equating to success. So the reason why Flesh and Blood is successful and popular is because the Variance levels are low.
Rhea.
Okay, let me push back on you a little bit. I think there's too much variance, specifically with respect to Brute's dice rolling. It really annoys me, both from like playing it and playing against it perspective, but also, and hear me out here, I think there's too much variance with regards to gem pairings. There's too many really extreme matchups in the game, especially when there's only like 20 decks. Here, I can name 5 off the top of my head. Ready? Bolton versus Icelander, it's a non-game. Prism versus Dromai, it's a non-game. Azalea versus Warmongers Diplomacy, Levia versus her own dice, and Arachne versus everything. Just way too much variance in who they have to play against there.
I feel personally attacked. Mike.
Yeah, I would say there's plenty of variance. I mean, the baseline of variance for any card game where you're drawing a random card off the top of your deck just is pretty high. I mean, that's what attracted me to the game. Was after a few games, I'm like, I'm seeing my entire deck, and it's usually, and so now it's become something of a grind fest between me and my opponent of getting the like little bits of value where we can, and that's what determines the winner of the game usually, and that will attract, I mean, a certain demographic to Flesh and Blood. That's pretty much everyone here. We don't want to go into a game and start like rolling dice, doing best of 3. Scooping after a few turns. Like the whole game gets played. There are matchups that are kind of unfortunate, like when Prism was sort of at the top of her game, that just invalidated a bunch of decks. So the Living Legend system is a decent way of filtering out those unplayable matchups, but I mean, we still have to live with them. But yeah, I would say there's plenty. I don't think LSS needs to introduce higher variance cards or any more higher variance classes at the moment.
Fair enough. Frank.
I think that a lot of the points about the cards and how much variance there is in gameplay is pretty accurate. But I think that there's not enough variance in game results. I think they could tone back some of the maybe variance in specific cards, but then try to, there's a lot of different knobs that they could adjust on this. But I think that the fact that if you're slightly better than your opponent, you can convert that into such a larger percentage of game wins throughout a tournament is actually a little bit detrimental to, we're seeing the same people at the tops of every single tournament, which is good in some ways. You're rewarding people for really being dedicated, but then also makes that barrier for entry for newer players or even just less enfranchised players when they're just trying to dip their feet into the competitive scene, because it is a bit discouraging to go 2 and 4 and then not get to have a fighting chance. Whereas I'm not saying I want every game to be scab skins, but I think there could just be like a little bit of an adjustment in that regard.
I agree. I think Ray made the best point there. I don't think a 90-10 matchup should exist in a game, right? I feel like it's a huge feels bad moment for a player to pick a hero and know that if you go to the wrong place at the wrong time, you just aren't going to have a game of Flesh and Blood in front of you.
What are the 90-10 matchups right now?
Azuri into Dromai, and Rhea had listed a bunch of them.
What?
Yeah,
name me.
Some of them were jokes, but Azuri into Dromai, Prism into Dromai, Icelander into Bolton is just like, it's really
okay.
Bolton.
That's perfectly fine. If Icelander's not there, is Bolton winning tournaments? If Dromai's not there, is what are the other ones you mentioned?
Azuri. If Dromai's not there, Azuri is winning some tournaments.
Azorius is doing better. Prism, whether the gatekeeper for Prism is there or not, is still gonna suck ass and not win tournaments.
Okay, we'll get to that later.
Sure, that's fine, no problem. I also just want to say one quick thing about attributing card draw as actual game variance is not a good point. I don't think that's. It's like saying that I went to a tournament and they listed that they have tables and chairs. Yeah, of course they'll have tables and chairs. That's part of it. Card draw is just built into absolutely everything. So I don't think that you can equate card draw to actual game variance. And the one thing that I think that Frank, you mentioned about variance as being a good thing. Variance is how mediocre or average players can have big swings and win games that they otherwise will not win, which is a good feeling. And that's why Hearthstone can be sometimes so addictive and so tilting at times, where you are in a position to win and your opponent comes up with this miracle 0.1%, rabbit out of a hat play that puts them back into the game or equalizes the board state, etc. And that is kind of what they bank on. I think Flesh and Blood is avoiding that and trying to get away from things like that. And it's also very difficult to inject variance into a paper game that does not include dice. Dice and coin flips, I think, are frankly some of the only things that you can do to inject an element of variance to games.
All right, Matt gets the last word on that one. On to the next topic. There has been a lot of tournament action happening with the Calling Birmingham, Battle Hardens, and Realm Brawls shaping the CC meta leading into national season. Starting with Rhea, is this the healthiest Flesh and Blood has ever been?
Okay, so this meta looks great, and not just because Icelander is winning everything, but it's not the best meta ever. This might be a hot take. It's the second best meta ever, and the healthiest or the best was Crew. And anyone who's going to hear that and be like, no, Control Dash was too overpowered. People were bad at playing back then. Control Dash was a simple, powerful game plan, and players weren't prepared to construct a good answer for it. I think if we go back to that meta now, I think that the aggro decks can outperform that deck a lot better because people are better players nowadays. Also, that deck had like 6 non-blocks, a bunch of items. In a world with Arg Smash, just play Rhinar if you're afraid of it.
I've heard a lot that in the past that people just were much worse earlier in the game. Mike, what do you think?
I think it's definitely one of the healthiest metagames. Like, this is one of the few times where when you tell someone that is looking to pick up a new deck, that you can kind of say, everything's on the table right now. They're the established, like 5 to 6 decks that are pretty good, that are in the S and the A tiers. And then everything else, there's a lot of underexplored decks at the moment. So everyone's kind of, not putting them up there with some of the other better decks in the format, but you can pick up something that's underexplored and, find some decent success with it. I think maybe the only healthier meta, I think was when old Prism Living Legend, I think that opened the floodgates for a lot of new decks to come in, and that felt like a really fun, healthy metagame. And we're in a similar type of metagame right now, so it's definitely one of the healthiest.
Frank?
I kind of agree. It's maybe in that number 2-ish range, maybe number 2, number 3. Yeah, maybe in contrast to what Mike said, I actually think right before Prism hit Living Legend was one of the best metagames that we'd seen, because obviously Prism was around and was gatekeeping a lot of decks completely, so they unfortunately were not able to be played. But for all of the viable options at a tournament, including Oldhim, who is terrible into Prism, there was a pretty healthy, close to the 40-60 mark for a bunch of these matchups going around. And, the one downside of this metagame is that it feels like some of the key decks really have these 90-10 matchups involved on one side or the other, which is it's not a problem for players. I think they learn to deal with it. They learn how they want to tackle the metagame on any given weekend. But there was a little bit less of that in the actual competitive choices for other metagames that we've seen, including that one and the one right after as well.
Flake, what do you think?
I think this is a very good metagame right now, and a lot of that is actually attributed to it's more of a regional thing than it is a global thing, and that's just also a consequence of the fact that there's no digital client on the scale of Magic Arena or other major games where people can actually homogenize the entire meta and it spits out of this big cauldron what everybody should be playing when they finally meet up. Talishar does its best, but Talishar pumps out several hundred games a day, whereas all these other clients are pumping out tens of thousands a day. This is a meta where, like we saw the meta in Cincinnati, the top 8 from Cincinnati, the top 8 from Chicago, the top 8 from Birmingham, and the top 8 at the Realm were completely different. The result was the same in terms of Icelander winning, but I think that's a whole other discussion wherein there's people who are complaining about Icelander being this dominant force in the meta is taking away from the absolute mastery of the people who won with them, be it Rhea, be it Majin Bey, etc. These are people who are specialists in this hero who have put in hundreds of hours. So what I like about the meta right now and why it's so healthy is that moving into Nats season, you're going to see the 3 or 4 weeks of nationals, and you're going to see, dozens of top 8s, and they're all going to look different. And then this is going to move into the worlds where we're going to finally see what a true meta is going to shape up with, where everybody meets up together. And I just want to sort of throw in real quick, when Prism Living Legend, that basically unleashed Oldhim onto the world, because Oldhim and Prism
for this topic. Yep.
Thank you. Oldhim versus Prism is the only legitimate 90-10 where both decks had favorable matchups into a lot of other things. Oldhim into Prism was the true 90-10, where Prism being prominent and taking up about 20 to 25% of the meta pie meant that Oldhim could not roll the dice and play Gem Roulette and then get absolutely gooned because they paired into 2 or 3 Prisms. So once Prism rotated, Oldhim came into play, and that was a whole other, that sort of started a fresh era.
All right. Anyone got anything to add?
I will say that Pro Tour Lille, there was, I think Prism was like 9th and 10th finishes, and then Oldhim was like 11, 12, 13, and 14. So even with Prism in the format, he was, kind of looming around the edges.
Well, you definitely had, right? You had 2 decks that were really good against everybody else, and at the convergence points is where you saw that, right? That disparity, but everyone had to suffer the being frozen out or arc lighted out for most of tournaments here. All right, moving on to the next one, a bit of a follow-up, so this works. One aspect of Flesh and Blood that can turn some people away is the nature of the polarizing matchups. We were just talking about this. The grind fests, the 90-10s, the look, I guess it's lunchtime scoop type of matches. Which class or hero do you hate playing against the most? We're going to start with Mike.
So I had 2 options for this. It was Illusionist or Runeblade. I remember playing Briar for one horrible Road to National season, and it just went terribly for me. It was probably all my fault, but now I feel like every sort of Runeblade or Briar that I play against, I'm like, I'm waiting for them to brick. I'm waiting for them to brick. And it seems to never happen.
Right. Only to you, right? Never to your opponent.
I had a whole summer of just brick after brick after brick, which I'm only blaming myself for. I didn't know what I was doing. But I've been in that driver's seat. It's gonna happen to them this game, and that's my pivot turn. That's what I'm looking for. It's bound to happen. And when it doesn't happen, you're just like, well, that was just, perfect 4 cards after perfect 4 cards for this Briar. And you can call that high rolling. It's not really. That's what the deck is supposed to do. So sometimes it just sucks. So sometimes I hate playing against Runeblades.
Fair enough. Frank, who do you hate playing against?
Not a specific deck or archetype. I quite enjoy playing against most things, but I actually really hate playing against the mirror in most decks. Part of it is because of how I like to practice a lot of different things and have a pretty broad experience instead of be really focused on one deck. But also I think that in the mirror match, it gets a little bit more pushed towards which cards do you happen to draw and in which order, or were they relevant to the game state. Whereas when you're playing against a deck that has a slightly different game plan from what you're doing, you can, make a slightly longer term plan and set up a bit better for that. Whereas in the mirror match, it sometimes can, be pretty bad feeling when it's just like, oh yeah, my opponent played 2 Rain Razors and then a 3 of a kind, and I looked at my hand and it was 4 blues, so I lost the game, and then that happens.
Well, Lexi's terrible. I agree with you on the mirror, with the exception being Azuri mirrors. I think they're just amazing to play against. Matt, what do you hate playing against?
Isaac Kroot, flat out.
I can see that.
The dude is my nemesis. No matter what event, be it an armory to a road to nationals or a pro quest, this dude always seems to find me in the Swiss rounds, and I hate it because I can never get him. I get close, but I can never get him. But in terms of a hero in the game, this is going to be super controversial. But as a Guardian guy, Bravo. I hate playing against Bravo, and I play Bravo a ton. I hate getting dominated, and I hate having to navigate the mirror. It is atrocious.
Macho Grande is terrible. Rhea.
So before I get to my answer, Mike, I want to sympathize with you real fast. ProQuest Season 2, I had 4 second place finishes as Briar. Got to the finals, had a 4 non-attack action hand every single game, and lost on the spot.
Oh, my heart.
What?
My heart.
And it was those Sonatas too. Oh, they were brutal. I was like 0-8 one weekend.
But the deck that I hate playing against is not that. And we haven't seen this because Fuseless is a thing now, but full Ice Lexi is the worst deck in Flesh and Blood. Because specifically, it is a zero-sum fun game. Either they're drawing hot and you have like 5 Frostbites and a pay or discard, or they drew a hand that is 4 2-block cards and they just roll over and die. So either way, one person is playing the game and the other person is just sitting there miserable. It's not only not fun, it's actively unfun.
Yep, and Kodachis just cry when you see them. It is terrible. All right, follow up. Anyone got anything else to add?
I love playing as Ice Lexi.
You're a terrible person. You should feel bad for it. Okay, we're going to move on to the next topic. With the release of Dusk Till Dawn came its most controversial card, Warmonger's Diplomacy. It's a generic 3-block blue. Was printing this a mistake? Frank, starting with you.
I don't think it was a mistake, but I do think it's on the stronger side of a lot of these generic options that we've seen. I think that LSS has been super careful about printing too many strong, ubiquitous kind of generic cards. The first 3 or 4 sets of the game after Arc, basically. And I think that printing a few more of these might go a long way in equalizing some of these more polarized matchups that we've been talking about, because if you have no chance whatsoever against a specific strategy, but there's a generic card that really puts you back into a position where it's a winnable matchup, even if it's not favored, that's like a really valuable thing to just have floating around in the card pool at generic. As for the specific effect, I think that if LSS wants this type of card to exist and be present and playable, to me, what that reads as is that they're also willing to print stronger cards for the classes that rely on a combination of attack actions and non-attack actions. It's like if you have more of these counterplay type cards to Runeblade, for example, or to Zalia, then that means that they're allowed to also have stronger cards in their kit, which is exciting to me because I like to, I want to see a format where it's about strengths and weaknesses kind of combating each other instead of just being like everyone slapping each other with wet noodles.
Matt, what do you got?
It should have been a yellow or a 2-block, in my opinion. I think that the fact that it has no effective downside and can be the silver bullet against certain classes is a little bit over the top. However, we've seen strong Majestics. Majestics are meant to be strong, and the fact that it doesn't immediately ice out, everybody. It's a card that can really dunk on particular heroes in particular circumstances, but it was played against Azalea, and Azalea went E-Strike, go again to something else. So it's not a complete bogus card. It's strong, which it's meant to be.
Raya.
So as someone who has won 2 events now, where playing the card was a huge part of winning at least 1 round per event, it's way too good. It shouldn't have been a blue block 3. I agree with Flake. I'll go further. I expect to see the card banned before Worlds. I think it's just really unhealthy for the game.
Ooh, that is a hot take.
Rest in peace, Azalea.
Mike.
Yeah, so I definitely have that it should probably block 2. It's unfortunate that too many decks can just slot it in. It would be okay if it was a silver bullet that really only a few decks had access to, like it fits well in a Ninja, it fits well in an Icelander, but a lot of other decks are just throwing it in because it's like this goes against it goes against that hero's deck building philosophy and what their deck wants to do, but it just is strong enough where it doesn't matter. Just slot it in. It'll come in handy like too often and be too too game breaking in that moment. So like, yeah, it should probably block 2. It needs some kind of downside. I mean, I look at this Rounds on Me as like a really good example of a blue block 3 that they printed where, yeah, it is strong. Not everyone wants to play it. Sometimes it doesn't have such a huge effect, but yeah, I was thinking that it's possible that we'll see this banned, but it would have been perfect, I think, if it was a block 2.
I think Codex of Frailty should have been an assassin-only card. Speaking of cards that were a mistake, one card in particular always comes up as a new banned and suspended announcement is made. Findel Spring Tunic is a Bloodsheath Skeleton on crack in a long game and enables the grossest combo ever of Command and Conquer into Pummel on just a blue. Is Findel Spring Tunic too good for the game? We're back up at Matt.
Oh, baby, you just spoke exactly the kind of sweet nothings I want in my life, which are but reminding me of those olden days of it's just a Command and Conquer with 1 floating. Like, what else could possibly happen? I got nothing in hand. I got a card in Arsenal, but you don't have to worry about that unless you're paying attention, and then your saving grace is the Spinal Spring Tunic. Is it too good? I don't think it's too good. I think it's very, very damn good. It's a freaking legendary, for Christ's sakes. It's meant to be good. It's meant to be there. And it is a generic staple that is getting reprinted for the umpteenth time, as it should be. Frankly, I think that the only thing that is holding this card back, or the one knock I have on it, is that it's still too expensive and inaccessible to get. And that is the criticism. But I think for what it is and for what it does, it is perfect.
All right, Rhea.
#retire Tunic to LL format. I had a big rant about this on Twitter a couple months ago. I think Tunic is really bad for Classic Constructed. It's not that it's just overpowered. Like, the real issue with it is it actively constrains design space. LSS can't print cards that are worse than it because people won't play that card. Like, literally look at what's happening to Tectonic Plating right now. It is a fantastic piece of equipment, and Bravos are like, yeah, but Tunic. And so the bar for legendaries that LSS has to print for class-specific equipment is just, I would argue, too high in order to convince those classes to not just play Tunic. I think once LSS prints enough reasonable, worse alternatives so that every class has a good chess equipment, I want to see them retire Tunic to the Living Legend format, where all of the game's powerful cards should have a permanent home.
I like that. Mike, what do you got?
Yeah, so I think Tunic is unfortunately like just ever so slightly too good, where it beats out all of these other more class-specific chess pieces. Like Redback Shroud, really cool card. Doesn't get played because Tunic is better. Yep. Yeah, it's just and you see it. LSS is printing these new legendary chess pieces that are really cool and like feel like they have a great power level, like really strong. But the other option is Tunic, and it's just too. It is too good in too many situations. I think if Tunic didn't give you that 1 block at the end of the game, you might see the other class specific legendary chess pieces getting played, because there's so many games where that one you're covering up that 1 breakpoint with a 3 block and Tunic at the end of the game. That wins a lot of games. If Tunic did not have that 1 block, I think it would probably be in a balanced position. I also don't like it thematically. I'm tired of brutes walking into battle wearing a pretty green
just
dress.
a dainty dress. Frank,
Yeah.
what do you think about Tunic?
I guess I'll be your fence sitter for this question because I agree with most of what we've been talking about, but I don't necessarily think that there's a right or wrong solution. I think that if we're going down the road of we want to decrease the power level of chest piece equipment, then banning it is a great idea. But I think that if you want to keep it in the format, then you could go the other route and have more heroes designed around like a near mandatory or mandatory chess piece that they basically must play to actually unlock all of the tools available to that class, kind of like Furnace and Dromai, in which case even if they wanted to get the free value, they wouldn't really have the option. And those cards can be more powerful if you also want a more powerful format, but they don't necessarily have to be because again, like it's just putting more of the actual heroes base power and design into a piece of equipment. But then you run into other issues, of course, with like how easy is it for players to get these legendaries from other sets when they get printed, or just are you kind of forcing players to play a hero in only one specific way if you do that? But yeah, that's why I'm the fence sitter here. I think that it is clearly like probably the strongest chess piece legal in the game right now, but I don't necessarily think that we have to banish it to the Shadow Realm yet.
That's fair. I've always thought that the Crucible of War majestic equipments are like the best equipments for the game, and if you can put more of those out into the world, where you have like Courage of Bladehold is to me the most perfect piece of equipment in Flesh and Blood. I think it does everything that it should do, and it doesn't do everything too overly powered.
I should hear the people saying that they should have banned Courage of Bladehold so they could give Bolton better cards.
All right, we are going to move on to the next topic here. We're going to talk a little Dust Till Dawn. Dust Till Dawn brought back some of the game's most beloved classes in Shadow Runeblade and Light Illusionist. Vincent players seem to be having a lot of fun, but Prism players are living their worst lives right now. Is new Prism trash or just unsolved? We'll start with Rhea.
Okay, so I alluded to this a little bit earlier in my like unwinnable matchup comment. If they banned Rake the Embers tomorrow, I would take Prism to Nationals.
Okay, all right.
The deck is like just nowhere remotely trash. It's really hard to play. It like wizard levels hard to play, and it's really hard to deck build. But I'm finally starting to get somewhere where I like my list. I don't think anyone is near solving her yet, but I'm really excited to see what comes out of Nats, because I'm like convinced someone has figured it out and they're staying quiet about it.
I think Fino's just burying what he's got until then. Mike, what do you think about new Prism?
I think I'm kind of in the same boat. I haven't put any personal testing into it. I've watched Fino's videos. It does seem like new Prism is being gatekept by Dromai a little bit, who I think at Nationals is going to be a huge percent of the meta, a decent chunk. And it's like, you think about it on paper, you're like, how is Prism going to kill a dragon? Throw a 7-power Herald into it? So I don't know. It's really early to say, but it really feels like at the moment, it's never going to be higher than like kind of a middle of the road type hero. I would be really surprised if someone at Nationals had a really impressive run with her. I want that to happen. I want new Prism to be good. But I don't know. It seems really hard if you have any chance of running into Dromai at a competitive event.
All right, Frank, what do you think?
I every time I look at a deck list and I see like 30 different cards from the previous deck list that I just looked at, I kind of think to myself, clearly no one has figured this out yet. And I don't even think that means that she's potentially going to be very good or very bad after she's solved. I think that we just don't have very good information. I think that the best information right now is, that it's from all of the very skilled players I've talked to, is that, they're still working on it and finding the strengths and weaknesses. And at the end of the day, it's about assembling a deck that is good into a specific meta game. So if you find a spot where all of the strengths line up with what you need and the weaknesses aren't dragging you down too far, then she'll probably be good in that context, right? But then maybe that never comes around because Dromai is looming above forever. So, you know, I think she's okay. I think she's okay.
All right. I do remember a time where Icelander was terrible in everybody's eyes for about 3 months, and then oh crap, Matt, new Prism. What do you got?
New Prism is 100% unsolved. It's not that she's bad. I think that she's just not quite there yet. I know of a lot of excellent pro level players who are actually actively practicing with this hero and think that they have something. Where are all the other huge Prism simps, and why haven't they figured it out? Probably because they're busy exchanging illusionist feat picks and just standing over the hero and not actually playing the hero for what the actual strengths of the hero are. I think that from the get-go, a lot of people just get blinded by the fact that figments and things like that. I think that a lot of those are kind of a little bit of a trap. You don't have to jam every figment, but doesn't hurt, right? At the same time, I think that yeah, there you go. So we're seeing a lot of those those beautiful marvels, but ultimately I think that Prism is a hero that is very strong, albeit unsolved, and I think that you're going to be surprised down the line when everybody emerges with their secret brews and say, you know what, I think that we're going to catch people. Because I know of a lot of people who send me screenshots of they're like, hey, I just jammed 50 games with Prism this week and I have an 80-something% win rate. And you're like, wow, okay, that's pretty good. There's something there, but people are not talking about it.
Well, that win rate's on Talishar. That both counts and then is completely
Divide by 2.
invalidated. All right. We are moving to the next question here. We're talking goats. All eyes were on Pablo Pintor in the finals of Calling Birmingham. I myself was ready to become a complete scarf guy and a denim guy had he pulled that off. But it did spark a fresh debate on who the GOAT of Flesh and Blood is. Hamilton is the reigning world champion, but is he the GOAT? Who is the GOAT right now? We're going to start with Mike.
I think it's a little too close to call right now. I think
you have to
Michael Hamilton.
Gotta say somebody.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna say it's still Michael Hamilton. He had kind of the craziest streak of consistency for like a 6-month to 1 year period that I don't think has been matched yet. But I mean, Pablo Pintor getting second at the Calling Birmingham definitely bumps him up there, and I think we'll continue to see him in top 4 placement at these higher tier events. So Michael Hamilton wins nationals, I think, or even Michael Fang. Whatever American wins U.S. nationals, I think they just kind of become the GOAT for the foreseeable future.
Oh, all right.
But I mean, there's too many good names in contention right now. Everyone has a big win as like their claim to fame. So whoever gets like their second really big win, I think will be the bona fide GOAT for a while.
Frank, is it Joe Montana or Tom Brady? It's Tom Brady. Who do you got?
I'm going to go with Michael Fang. No further comment.
Oh, okay. I think it's just on and off. Matt, the GOAT.
The GOAT is a good question, and I think that this is a conversation. I will give you an answer, but I just want to preface this with the fact that the game's too young to actually discuss who the greatest of all time is, because there's not enough time and things are still in flux. 2022, it was Michael Hamilton. Nobody had a year in this game like Michael Hamilton did, but what are you comparing it against? 2021 and 2020? Like, there's not much to really put it against. I agree with Frank here wholeheartedly that somebody like Michael Fang does not get anywhere close to the kind of recognition he needs, because if you look at all the top 8s, if you look at all those major standings, whose name is always there, it's Michael freaking Fang, the sure thing. And I can guarantee you that he's going to be in contention all the time. But the one thing I just want to talk about real quick is talk about Pablo Pintor and how great he is. And he's like, oh, he finished second at the Calling. Why aren't we talking about the person who won the Calling? Because when was the last time Pablo Pintor won something other than the first Pro Tour? And I'm getting, he's a phenomenal human being and a great player. But why aren't we talking about Rhea being one of the greatest in the world? Because she just went back to back in Cincinnati. I know you don't want to hear it, but what I'm just using this as sort of a conversation piece here to be like, we're talking about the ones who finish second and have consistency. Well, Rhea just went back to back in Cincinnati and Chicago in 2 very different top 8s. So have at it.
Pablo did win calling Antwerp.
Did he? I wasn't. Yes, he did. You're right.
Yeah, he retired Oldham.
Oldham.
Yep.
Yes, he did. He put it down. That's why I'm forgetting about him, because he put my best friend down. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not quite a "what have you done for me lately" type of situation.
Michael Fang.
All right.
Michael
okay.
King Fang, and he's got Brody in his back pocket as like a playtester, like partner. So like when one goes down, Brody's just there like a shark tooth, just replacing him. So
I think they could drive
does
hero
Brody
like
stay in his luggage where they go around the world to the same places all the time? Rhea, who's the GOAT?
I'm sad you had that last 10 seconds, Flake, because you stole my thunder. Let's throw out the name that never gets brought up and absolutely should. Let's check the 90-day XP leaderboard real fast.
Oh God.
Number 1. What's he at lifetime? He's number 4. Okay, so he plays 7 armories a week. He's not that good at the game, but okay, never mind. He's 8th in constructed elo.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's bad at limited. Nope. 18th. This kid is in the top 20 of the leaderboards every single way you slice it. He's in every top 8 ever. GOAT is past and future, and I can't think of someone that has a more promising career ahead of them than Brody Spurlock. I think he's the GOAT right now.
Donate my points to Rhea, because that was a really good point. I am the number 1 Brody Spurlock fan of all time, since I met the kid about 2 years ago. He is the future of this game, and they are lucky to have him. And the fact that he practices with people of the ilk of Michael Fang, you know that the direction that he's being led is sustainable and has such an unattainable ceiling for so many other people.
And he's at every single tournament. There could be a calling Antarctica, and he will be there and top 8 that.
And he top 8s every single tournament.
Yeah, he's just there. He's omnipresent. All right, too early for the GOAT. All right, this is real hard hitting stuff here. There are many heroes walking around the world of Wraith, from the bright city of Solana to the dark depths of the Monastery. Which among these bold and dangerous individuals would you pick to be your roommate? Rhea, who would you like to room with from the world of Wraith?
Okay, hear me out here. Katsu, the Wanderer, because he's never home. This is the kind of roommate that pieces out once a month. He just walks in, he grabs a sandwich out of the fridge, and he's gone. It's like you're living alone, but you get to hear cool stories about traveling the world every other month.
That's a decent answer there, Mike. Who do you got? Who would you like to be your roommate? Who's signing that lease with you?
All right. On a similar note, I have Arachne.
Okay. All right. You're gonna have to convince me here.
Well, he's a contract killer. He's very busy, and he's not really going to be home. He's going to be out fulfilling his contracts, hitting his targets. And even when he does come home, I imagine him coming in through his bedroom window. He won't come in through the kitchen and make any noise. He'll swoop in through the window. I imagine he doesn't really speak much, and if he does, it's very muffled. So yeah. I don't think he'll really ever be seen. And he's good at his job, so he's not careless. He's not going to get me involved. The cops aren't going to be knocking on our apartment door looking for the masked killer. So, he's just going to swoop in his room every now and then, grab a new spider's bite, and be on his way. As long as he, pays his fair share. I think I've got the fridge to myself. I think I've got, all my stuff in the bathroom. Probably never really going to see him. So I'm sure he's a nice assassin, but,
What do you call him for short? When he's walking on, hey, Kenny, how's it going?
Kenny, yeah, rank Kenny.
Counterpoint, what are you going to do about all the body bags they leave lying around everywhere?
I don't think
Arachne is any
going to leave them in the apartment. They're long gone. Arachne knows to dump a body in the marsh.
That's a very good point. You'd expect a contract killer to have responsible body disposal process there. Frank, who is rooming with you from Wraith here.
Well, I think Rhea stole my original answer, but then I thought about it a bit more, and I was like, actually, I can't be Katsu's roommate because I've been that roommate a lot for other people, and I wore that Katsu outfit to New Jersey, so I think I would go with Azuri, actually. It's funny that we're actually choosing all these assassins and ninjas, but Azuri, because you would basically be under the witness protection program without, signing up for it. And that's pretty good. That's pretty good, just off the radar.
All right. Matt, who is rooming with you?
Rhea had the right idea here, and as somebody who has been living alone for 13 years happily, it's something where I want that kind of thing. But the fact that there is a home base for Katsu, that means that half the fridge is theirs, half the stuff is theirs, whatever. I got the one up on this, and it is Data Doll, because Data Doll doesn't need room in the fridge because Data Doll doesn't eat. Also, Data Doll can be shut off, and that is the immediate thing. It's like, here's your stuff, here's your spot, shut you off, and that's it, we're done. And then I have the entire place, plus I have a cool conversation piece should I be entertaining people at my house. Here's Data Doll, she's got 3 intellect, don't turn her on, I don't want to deal with this garbage, but everything I otherwise appreciate about living alone is still intact, so I'm going to say Data Doll.
The fembot in Matt's apartment. All right.
Whoa, that's more of an illusionist fan kind of a trajectory you're on here.
I want to see Dash is just walking in like, hey, I heard you needed a roommate. Here's the big robot.
Take this with you.
No problems there. No problems.
Okay, but I think the conspiracy theory in me says that maybe Dash is actually the version 2 of Data Doll, You've seen some of these new pictures of Dash?
Oh, she's like a marionette?
Biometric thingamajiggers.
She's got like Pinocchio'd back to life.
All right.
The original Dash died, and so the new Dash looks totally different.
You know who I would not want to room with is Prism. I think she'd be super obnoxious, reading books out loud all the time, and all the light in the apartment. It would be terrible.
Prism is that roommate that takes duct tape and like draws a line down the middle of the apartment.
This side is of the light. This side is not. Get out of there. All right. I think that is going to that's going to do it. I think we made good time here. I won't keep you guys any longer. So we will close it out. I've been secretly keeping track with I've got little tile counters here, and by far Rhea has gotten the most points today from my end. So Rhea, you have about 2 minutes to say whatever you want as the winner of today's episode.
Okay, I've made a lot of jokes about C-tier heroes, but please, for the love of God, guys, Icelander is not an S-tier hero. There's been an incredible series of coincidences to win 4 events in a row. Zoom out of that Crawling Birmingham top 8. There's 1 Icelander in the top 32. It's a great deck. It rewards mastery. It's just an okay deck, okay? We don't need bans. We're fine.
Stormstriders has to go.
Please, no.
I can't seem to win against Icelander. That turn, that like a little extra half turn gets me every time. It's just a blue Emeritus and in a waning moon for 9. As Katsu, I've got all red cards. It's just that's it. Can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, just low entropy decks do well. It's just oh no.
There was a lot of there's a lot of good conversation there. I think any single one of these topics we could expand into like a huge long conversation, but that's part of the fun, leaving a lot unsaid, a lot of room for other times here. We can go around and if everyone's got stuff they want to plug, I want to know where you're at, where you're from, what you're doing, the projects you got coming up. We'll start with Mike. Mike, tell us where we can find you, what you got going on.
Yep, you can find me on YouTube. Channel is Blockout Party, all one word. You can find me on Twitter at Blockout Party. I'm working on my next video, which I am hoping will drop before U.S. Nationals. So just keep it on your radar. It's going to be, my magnum opus so far. So I'm looking forward to it. I have to put in the hours in like the next 2 weeks. So yeah, unfortunately can't do much testing for nationals because I just got to finish the video. So keep your eyes out for it.
I'm rooting for you. Frank, where can we find you? What do you got going on?
Yeah, I've got like 3 or 4 articles on the go right now, which are all in the same state of not getting written.
All right. Okay.
But I think there's going to be some interesting stuff coming out on Twitter, I guess, is probably the easiest place, and then maybe the YouTube channel in the next little bit. So the Lazy Dog is good, and we'll come back from our little hiatus with some exciting content.
Is this for the mothership or somewhere else? Can you tell that much?
Oh no. I mean there's gonna be a but no, not for the mothership.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Rhea, where can we find you?
You can find me at Twitter and on YouTube at OnHitEffect. I stream weekly-ish, Wednesdays-ish is my slogan that I like to say. Icelander, Prism, whatever deck I feel like playing. Just chill, Talishar hangout vibes.
Excellent. And Matt?
I am everywhere a lot, to the chagrin of many and to the joy of me. So ultimately, I'm on Twitter at WatchFlake. My podcast, the Instant Speed Podcast, which focuses on Flesh and Blood, is on YouTube and all the other places. And at Instant Speed Pod on Twitter. And that's about it. And yeah, this was fun.
Excellent. All right. Thanks everybody for coming on. I appreciate the time. This was fun. New format experiment. Thank you for being my guinea pigs here. And we're going to close things out. You are watching / listening to The Action Point. The Action Point theme was written, produced, and performed by Griff. The podcast audio stream is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more streaming platforms. You can find me on YouTube and Twitter using the handle at OffTheRailsTCG. Be sure to head over to there and like, subscribe, click the bell notification to see more content coming out all the time, and click the follow button on my Twitter. Off the Rails TCG also has a Discord. Click the invite in the link below and be some of the first people to see the newest content from the channel, and talking with my friends and I about all things Flesh and Blood, and some Lorcana, and some Alpha Clash, and whatever else interests us at the moment. Thanks everybody for coming on. I don't have any catchy things to say at the end, so we're just gonna say goodbye. Thanks everybody.
The action point, no relaxing. Straight from off the rails with your host, Mr. Patrick. Show we attack, then defend and react. Calculate the damage, then resolve in a snap. Facts with this here and ember blade, leave no witnesses. I just close the combat chain and we winning this. Listen, this a blaze, we ain't going scar for scar. And I'm feeling like a hero, we ain't going call for card. It's the action point, no relaxing.